So the critical mass is really very important when you want to make breakthroughs in science. There is a huge potential in the CGR, not only because of what we have done in the last 50 years.
What are some of the biggest challenges you're currently facing?
Really, the big challenges are
Ismahane, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's a pleasure to be with you here in the show.
I want to start with a little bit around your journey into the world of science. Let's go back a little bit. Where, why, and how did your passion for science begin?
I think, Paul, it started very early on. When I was studying in my primary journey, secondary journey, I think in Morocco, they staggered. And I think all over the world, maybe now they are doing it a bit earlier, that you get to know math first and then they bring you physics and then chemistry and then biology. And I think for me, it was every time I get to see one of the disciplines, I'm like, wow, this is the one. This is the one that explains it all. So I remember I was really mad with math, and I was in the competitions at Marrakesh level at that time. And then when I got to see physics, it makes a lot of sense. Like I loved it. Same thing with chemistry, where really it's about reactions and pathways. And then when I got into biology and particularly genetics, it was just like a blow-minded moment. Like, this is it. This is that brings all together. The mathematics, the physics, the chemistry, all together. And I got really passionate about it. Particularly genetics got me drawn in much more than any other subject in biology. It's just so much enjoyment. Unfortunately, we are not able to learn as much as when we are kids. And that's why it's good that they are giving us that information at that age.
Were your family supportive of this love for science?
Oh, definitely. My dad was a teacher and then a director of a primary school. So he was very pushy on that side that yes, you have to study. It's all about how much you learn. It's all about your grade at school. It was quite competitive at home.
Yeah.
And then my elder sister was very good student. She was 5 years older than me. She was really like a go-getter. So, and she ended up doing physics and electronics and robotics in her career, but really she was a role model and we all followed her. All the sisters went the same path, more or less.
As you fast forward, you've had an incredible career. You've had positions such as the chief scientist at the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, which is when we kind of started to engage and interact. You've worked as the Director General of the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture, or ICBA, which is based in the United Arab Emirates. And now you're the Executive Managing Director of the CGIAR, as well as being highly awarded with numerous accolades, with an award being given by the King of Morocco. What are you enjoying about your latest appointment after such a distinguished career?
It's really a privilege to an honor to have had the chance and the opportunity to be in those positions. I see it really as an honor, and I see it also as a responsibility because I'm one of few that did it, but it doesn't mean I'm the brightest. It doesn't mean I'm the only one that can do it. There are other millions, thousands of people that can do it, but I had that privilege to be able to be in those positions. And hence, I have the responsibility to represent the scientists, to represent a woman from the South in that position. And I really enjoyed every one of them. I think really, we talked about it before, Paul. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it sincerely. We spend so much hours or so much time of our life in work. We need to enjoy it. We need to produce and be delivering, but also there should be an enjoyment component. Otherwise, you wouldn't give all what you have to give. So for me, it's really an honor. And particularly now at CGR, I mean, I loved all my position. The chief scientist at FAO was a great one, and getting to understand the UN and getting to put more spotlight on science in a UN setting was quite difficult, but really enjoyable and very refreshing. And there was a call for it. Even the members were saying, we want to hear more about science. We want to hear more about innovation. We want to hear more about solutions than problems. In the CGR, particularly, I find it really wonderful to be in a science based organization representing almost 10,000 people over almost 80 countries. And given the history of CGR, I find it really wonderful to be the face of it and to talk science and to talk partnership and to talk how could we do it better now that we have spent 50 years. How could we strengthen the nurses? How could we partner better to transform food, land, and water systems as our really mission and vision say it? And that's how I see it from my perspective. ICBA was a great journey with the UAE, and we've met there as well, Paul. It was a small center, but with such a niche area that made it so special. And I think really we did a great work, and ICBA continued to do a great work in terms of salinity understanding and breeding material for saline water.
You've hinted a little bit. So for listeners that have not heard of what is CGIAR, obviously acronyms can and names that acronyms that have become names that people are always help me understand what is this, how would you describe what it is?
So, CGR is the largest group of public international agriculture research. So, it's the only centers that really give priority to public good, to global international knowledge around food, land, and water systems, covering all spectrum from plant breeding to animal breeding to fish breeding to water management to policy to management or production system in tropical agriculture in dry in different ecosystem. So it is an integrated partnership as we call it. So we have 13 centers in the group and every center has a specialty. However, we are all together under the umbrella of one CGR as an integrated partnership. What is known about the CGR, it's mostly the breeding component because we are behind 60% of the wheat in the world. The CGR created most of the varieties of the rice, about 50% of the rice in the world. Most of the beans comes from the CGR, the majority of the beans. Same thing with the barley, with the cassava, with chickpea, lentils, and you name it. So different species. Same thing with livestock, be it small ruminants or cattle or fish like tilapia, for example. 90% of the tilapia of the world comes from our center in Malaysia. So that's what we are known for. We are also known for our analysis and modeling through IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute, whereby we have worked with many countries, be it high income, middle, or low, to really analyze their policies and provide them guidance and recommendations on their food policy spectrum and many more. Of course, on the water side as well, we're quite famous with both the policy side but also the technical side. Some people might not know the CGR per se, but they would know the center. They would know BARDA, they would know CIMID, they would know IITA, they would know Africa Rice, and so on and so forth. So CGR is the group that started. And now it's bringing it all together under one CGR umbrella. And the how, the why, and like in the 60s and the 70s, we need to look at the things at the system level. You can't fix only one species. You have to fix the whole system. And if you change one component, it has a lot of effect on the other variable. So you need to really bring it at system level. And that's why one CGR makes a lot of sense today.
That's super helpful, and I think understanding the system level is really critical for us, and it's really critical to understand how you're thinking at a systemic level on the interrelationships as well between the different crops and the different challenges that we're facing from climate and other things. So in these centers, I think you said 13, is that right?
Yes, 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 13 centers that are a part of this wider CGIAR. So how do each of them play their own unique role in this food system transformation?
So on the one CGR, what we are trying to have, it's certain common grounds. So we have a unified governance. We have our global impact that we want to really make sure it's fully coordinated under a very clear framework. And we are trying also to streamline operations. And that streamlining of operation, it's mostly to make it more efficient. It's two aspects to it. make it more efficient and less costly, of course, but also have it at the highest standards possible. So, as a small center or a big center, they should have at least the highest standard, certain levels of standards in different aspects, be it in ethics, be it in research management, be it in research ethics, be it in financial management, and so on and so forth. So every center is still the center, the most important center in their area of expertise. For example, if I take IITA in Nigeria, it's really the leading center in terms of cassava breeding and in terms of all the value chain of cassava, only not only the breeding, but also the processing of cassava, scaling up of the new methodologies of propagating cassava, and so on and so forth. So every center, it's still a house of knowledge. That's how I see it myself, or a lighthouse of knowledge in those areas of collaboration. But together, we are bringing together the crops, the livestock, the water, the policy, all the other aspects, the access to the market, the analysis of the regulation and policies, the engagement of the different partners. So together, we are working with 3,000 partners across the globe. So it's much more impactful when we come together and we look at it at the systemic level, at the system level, and we the way nature is doing it. I always like to say it. We need to mimic our nature, and nature is not walls. There is no walls. There is no separation. Everything is seemingly going into the other aspect.
There's obviously a lot of thought gone into how to systematize, but also to create that depth of knowledge on certain or lighthouses that you are talking about, or houses of knowledge. These kind of spaces which have real depth, because science is about really going deep and going deep into certain questions and certain challenges. But then at the same time, looking broad. It's quite complex.
And having the critical mass is very important. So when you look at breeding, when you look at the CGR, you look at the number of breeders we have. I don't have the number of breeders we have, but look at the at climate change and agriculture. We have
Mm,
600 scientists that are in that spectrum of agriculture and interaction with climate change.
amazing.
So when you look at it this way, and for example, in 2023, we trained 700,000 people. So
Wow.
the critical mass is really very important when you want to make breakthroughs in science and you want to make a big change or a big, really advancement and progress.
What are some of the biggest challenges you're currently facing? Because the world's obviously quite complicated at the moment, but what's some of the biggest challenges on your radar?
I think really the big challenges are the challenges of everybody. The first and upmost really challenge I think we all have. It's really the intertwined nature of all the challenges, particularly climate, inequalities, environment, food insecurity and nutrition insecurity. When you look at all of these, we are all hit by really the fact that the numbers are not looking good. We are not doing well. We have still 350 million people that are affected by extreme hunger, not hunger. The numbers of hunger are in the 800, but extreme hunger, it's still 350 million. And we know that we are in a warming trend. And if we have plus 2 degrees, not plus four, plus 2 degrees, we're going to have an additional 189 million people that are going to go into hunger. If we have plus 4 degrees, we're going to have 2 billion more. So the numbers are really striking. And the only way forward is that we need to look at the system level and we need to be bolder and we need to bring solution and scale them up. We can't keep really bringing solutions without really paying enough attention to what are the ways and means to make sure it goes to all farmers, particularly those 500 million small scale farmers that are in the global south and in the least income countries. So, Paul, as we are talking about the challenges, and they are really overwhelming, you know them as well as I do, there is also an opportunity. And for me, the opportunity lies in science. The opportunity is it's to bring what we have right now on the ground, and I think that's the work of international development agencies to scale up, because there isn't enough scale up of most of the basic innovation that we have in the high income countries. You won't find them in the low income countries, and you find them that are way too expensive for the farmers. But there is also a chance to find much better solutions. And that's really, it's in the science and in the investment in science. So climate resilient crops, for example, we have right now in the market would not make it with plus 2 degrees. So we have to work ahead of those warming happening or those environmental changes happening so that we have the right system as a whole, the variety and the practices with it. And there, I think there is a huge potential in the CGR, not only because of what we have done in the last 50 years, but also because we are custodians of the gene banks. So we have huge collections for any species you can think of. And in those gene bank, we have the genes that will allow us to have much more heat tolerant varieties or drought tolerant varieties, or a higher way to sequester carbon in those species and increase, of course, yield and diseases. So there's a number of genes there that will allow us really to have the species that we need for tomorrow. And we need to do it. That's where the opportunity is. And I hope really that everybody see it, because you could see it in any sector, in energy, in health, in different sectors. So we need to invest more in the solution, and we need to invest more in agriculture particularly, because agriculture is the only one that can do both mitigation and adaptation. So you are adapting to the environment and you have co-benefit mitigation impact. And it's again the only sector that can clean up the air and that can sequester carbon. There is no other sector that does it. It's only soils, it's only plants and oceans that can really sequester. And those are the ecosystem where our food, land, and water systems are, and where our agriculture sector is.
These opportunities are so critical, and it's so important in a world that's faced with these challenges to have hope. And I guess science provides that hope. It provides the opportunity for us to adapt and mitigate concurrently, and agriculture is critical for that. It's so important that we keep that in mind as we're understanding conversations around investments and even development aid and assistance and all of these things, which are hotly debated at the moment.
So if you have a sector that could be a solution, not only reduce their own emission, but other sector emission, how could you only invest 3% in?
And we need to advocate and really shift that so that it's much more balanced in terms of the investment. So coming up is CGIAR Science Week, which is a week where you're gathering together. Tell us a little bit about what is it and why is it so important at this time to be bringing scientists together.
So I think, Paul, I would like really the Science Week to be a global gathering. And we are doing it over the week, as you know, from 7 to 12 April. And we want a really a global gathering of our top scientists, policymakers, advocates. And we want to really focus on the solutions, focus on the innovation, focus on how could we scale up all these solutions, and how could we bring up new solutions given the great advancement of science that we have seen in the last 10 years, and even just recently on quantum computing, for example. So for us, we're going to launch our new portfolio. It's a 2025 to 2030 research portfolio that is at the heart of tackling food, climate, and biodiversity challenges. We want to really focus, again, as I said, on solutions, but also on partnership. How could we do it better? Knowing the challenges, knowing that nobody can do it alone, how could we, as scientific community, come together and have that critical mass that I talked about? We have critical mass in CGR, but there is also areas where we don't have client critical mass, or even if we have it, we need more from our partners. And that's why I mention always our 3,000 partner institutions. They're not individual institutions. So how could we work together in a better way to really have the breakthroughs we need to completely revamp and change the way we are doing agriculture or food, land, and water system management? And the third one for me, it's a call for action to realign food, land, and water system for a sustainable future. So we keep talking about sustainability, and I think we have to define it better. But what we need to do also is create an environment for the farmers to move to that sustainable food, land, and water systems. And the only way to do it is to have a just transition. Energy did it, and it worked super well because they were well organized. They took advantage of the discussion around climate, and they got the just transition in energy. Government, policymakers, investors, they all support it. We need the same thing for agriculture to make a big hit and to really have a big change towards a sustainable agri-food systems.
The people coming to Nairobi that are gathering this global moment, what do you hope people will take away from being together? What's your one, takeaway that you're really hopeful for that people will really come away from this with?
I hope really that people goes away thinking we can make it. We can make it together. We can change the food, land, and water system together. And I think really that's the one I want to people go with a hope, saying that it's possible, but it requires a very strong partnership to really scale the real world solutions. And I want them really to go with an urgency that the food and climate crisis demand action now. And that's the solution is in the science. And we need all to put hand in hand, work together to make it happen. So I think really these two areas would be very, very crucial for me. And I hope we're going to give them an appetite to join us in the delivery of the research portfolio over 6 years. So partnership, I think, in all of this is important. And every one of us brings what they can do, and we put it together. And the sum of the whole, how do we say it? Paul?
Yeah, there's some of the parts, yeah, or the parts of the whole. Yeah, it gets used all different ways.
Okay, that's good. The 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 sum of
Parts of the whole, the
the
of the. Now I'm confused. I don't know. I know what you're saying. This is
exactly.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about really partnership, excitement to work with us in the portfolio, but also an urgency flavor to it. So people do not put it on the side. They say, no, we need to work on it. We need to make it happen. So I hope that will be, but I think there will be a lot of showcase of what science can do. And I hope really some investors as well will be ordering us to make sure that those breakthroughs make it to the hand of the farmers by the hand.
I was going to ask you because, international development budgets are shrinking at the moment and there's a lot of competition for funding and that's getting tight. So, some of the things you've talked to me about, what you're trying to do, efficiencies and working together and building all of this is really critical at the moment because there's less resource with a bigger problem or a bigger challenge, and that urgency is critical. So what would be your one message around the importance of really funding agricultural research at a time like this, like right in the moment we're in where that things are getting tougher? I kind of feel like it's almost a moment that we should be actually putting more energy into funding agricultural research so that we can accelerate, become more efficient. But what do you think?
I couldn't agree more with you, Paul. I think really we have to shift, and that's why I think the donor community should understand it more than anybody else. We need to shift from crisis response to prevention. So if we want to prevent malnutrition, but really completely eradicate it and make sure it doesn't happen in the future, we need to invest more in science. I think science can deliver solutions. And right now, unfortunately, most of the countries are way below 3% of their GDP in science all across. And if you look at agriculture per se, agriculture is receiving less than 7% of all ODA. It's really, we need to shift if we want to really prevent, if we want to have a setup that will help us better in the future, we need to invest more and invest more in agriculture at large, definitely, but also in the science behind agriculture. There is also very interesting studies that shows that the cost of inaction it's much more higher. So there was a study that shows that in only 4 years, the numbers moved from $12 billion to about $25 billion. So the numbers are the number of inaction, and I think really we need to talk more about it. There are different studies that talks about different numbers, But really, if the call, whatever the number is, one of the numbers says that we need about 33 to 50 billion more annually to achieve SDG 2 by 2030, including 14 billion from ODA. So the cost of inaction of that, it's more than a double, if not three or four, five times. So I think really we need to understand that prevention is far better, and prevention it's doable. The way we did it in certain diseases, but diseases it's simple. You get a cure and you do it. Food security, nutrition security, it's much more broader. Environmental protection, biodiversity conservation, those are concepts that are much more complex. And unless we gear toward really using the science and using the best science to find those solutions, but also we scale them up. And scaling up, we are not good at it. And that's why I'm very excited that in this new portfolio, we have a scaling for impact program. And we need to crack it. We need to understand why scaling has been so difficult. And in my mind, we need to follow the private sector model. They are so good at scaling, but we need to bring them in massively to help us really see those solutions that will prevent malnutrition, that will prevent degradation of natural resources, and that will prevent also food insecurity that we have in the world right now.
One thing I always like to close off interviews with is a bit of a recurring question that often that kind of we can all relate to. It's around your what you like to eat. What are you enjoying eating? You know you work. You're a scientist, but what does a scientist who's at the cutting edge of agricultural research? What are you enjoying eating when you get the chance?
As a Moroccan citizen, I'm also Canadian, but I was born and raised in Morocco. I love Moroccan food. And if you know Moroccan food,
It's
the
amazing.
thank you, Paul. But what's really the first criteria in Moroccan food? It's diversification. It's almost you could eat for so many days that every day it's a different dish. So in Morocco, one, 2 point for me is that we eat a lot of vegetables. And that's why the tagine, it's a little piece of meat in the middle, but the rest of it is all vegetables or any plate or a couscous, for example. It's seven vegetables we have and a small piece of meat. So it's really both diversification and lots of vegetable. But I have to say I'm a big fan of bread. That's one thing I can't take away from my plates. I love also bread, but also I love fruit. So by the end, it's a number of things around many cuisines. The other cuisine that I love very much is the Peruvian cuisine,
Oh
and
yeah,
that it's a
very good.
lot of fish and a lot of really fusion Japanese
Yeah.
Peruvian fusion cuisine. So for me, it's diversification.
I love it, and that's so important. And I think that's a great note to end on because diversification is the future of our, I think, planet. And protecting that and improving that in our diet is going to help and our agricultural system. So great to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're super excited about Nairobi and CGIAR Science Week, and it'll be great to catch up. Looking forward to hearing all of the amazing work that's going on around the CGIAR and all of the innovation that's really exciting and brings hope.
Thank you so much, Paul, and see you in Nairobi. And I hope I'll see many people in Nairobi because it's going to be a celebration of science and how that science could help us in the crisis world that we are right now. Thank you so much, Paul.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.